Chinese medicine says there's external causes of disease, internal causes of disease, and then they have like miscellaneous causes of disease. External causes of disease are typically things that you could prevent from happening to your body. Now, not in every case, and in some cases those external causes might come into what's called pestilence disease, which is pandemic disease, or where the external environmental factors are so virulent, so terrible, let's say, that everybody gets sick. It's almost unpreventable, and that in Chinese medicine they put in the miscellaneous category. So the second cause, or the internal cause of disease, is considered the emotions, right? The 7 emotions. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Chinese Medicine Podcast. My name is Marie Hopkinson. I'm a herbalist and an acupuncturist. Today's video we're going to talk about what are the causes of disease in traditional Chinese medicine. So this is TCM. Sometimes on this podcast we talk about classical Chinese medicine, and I will talk a bit about how that applies to this, because these aren't foreign to classical Chinese medicine for sure, they're part of it. But this is how TCM, or traditional Chinese medicine, classifies it. So if you're learning Chinese medicine at a Chinese medicine school, this is what they would use. I'm going to use my good old Giovanni textbook, get it out of it, so dust it off a little bit, and talk about the categories in here, because that's what most people will be using. Obviously the book has been updated since this is my vintage model from like 20 years ago. So, but the good thing is Chinese medicine doesn't change. So when people rewrite books or they update them, they just add more stuff into them, explanation or wise, maybe add more cases and stuff like that. But the core foundational information never changes. So welcome to the channel if you're new here and you haven't subscribed. And I know there's some of you out there. Please click that subscribe button. It really makes my day. And yeah, I'd love to see your comments and let me know what you'd like to hear about Chinese medicine on the channel as well. So let's talk about these 3 causes. So there's this is one way to think of it, make it very easy. And then these have little categorizations, really. They're not just one individual causes. But Chinese medicine says there's external causes of disease, internal causes of disease, and then they have like miscellaneous causes of disease or other causes. So miscellaneous, we're going to talk about those categories in a minute as well. External causes of disease are typically things that you could prevent from happening to your body. Now, not in every case, and in some cases those external causes might come into what's called pestilence disease, which is pandemic disease, or where the external environmental factors are so virulent, so terrible, let's say, that everybody gets sick. It's almost unpreventable, and that in Chinese medicine they put in the miscellaneous category. And there's some other things in there as well. But those external causes is wind, cold, dampness, heat, fire. What else is in there? Dryness. So those external causes, I just want to make sure I haven't missed anyone. The 6 pathogenic factors. Summer heat, the Liu Xie Qi. So 6, Liu meaning 6. Xie Qi or Xie Qi meaning like external or evil Qi, the 6 evils. This is all the same thing. They're all called, that's all different categorization. So these are things that come in from the environment, and our body has to then cope with that. And how that happens and what happens to us is a very individual thing because of what we do to our body, and that comes into the next categories as well. So people can be born with different constitutions. People could be born with, different genetic disorders, and they could also be subjected to different upbringings, different diets, different environments. So someone that grows up in a cold place and they've always lived in that cold place, probably more suited to the cold, their body would be, than someone who gets on a plane and just rocks up in a cold place who's come from a very hot place. Yeah, so the external causes of disease come from the environment onto our body. And not all of us get sick in the same way because of those things that are different from, different people. And some of that then comes into these other causes that we're going to talk about. So something might have started it as an external cause, but then it progresses on in people in different ways because of their constitution, because of their diet, and it goes on and on. So the second cause, or the internal cause of disease, is considered the emotions, right? The 7 emotions of your body. So not that we only have 7 emotions, but these emotions are the main ones that traditional Chinese medicine identifies and pairs with certain organs. So basically, if you don't take care of your body in these ways, these have excess or uncontrolled parts of these emotions, then they're going to cause disease. So you have anger and frustration, that affects your liver. You have also resentments kind of included in that. You have joy, too much joy. Can you have too much joy? So it's more like people that get hysteria, inappropriate kind of joy, too much pleasure, like going to Pleasure Town all the time. That could cause illness as well. Worry and pensiveness, that affects your spleen energy or your earth element. Grief and sadness affects the metal element or the lungs. And then you have shock and fear as two emotions that affect the water element, the kidneys particularly. So those are part of the internal causes. Now, I've often put diet as an internal cause of disease as well. Like I often group that within that internal cause, and I've seen other people put that in there as well, different textbooks. But with Giovanni, he doesn't do that. He just puts it in the other. So technically, the external causes of diseases are the ones you can't control, being exposed to it. In some cases you can. So let's say you know it's windy, you could either go out in the wind or not go out in the wind. But in general, you can't control the wind. Like none of us have that ability yet to sort of go, oh, we'll just make it sunny all the time and not windy, or just warm all the time. You know, the weather changes, the seasons change, seasons happen and weather patterns happen. But diet is something that we can control. Emotions are things that we can control. So yes, emotions happen to us, right? But we can also control that. And that's one thing that Chinese medicine kind of, in that differentiation, that's super important to understand, because there's a lot of emphasis on when you get sick in Chinese medicine that it's kind of your own fault. Like if you're a sage of Chinese medicine or you're a knowledgeable person in Chinese medicine, that there's an onus on you to stay healthy. So you should know what to do to stay healthy. And you should also like be aware of how these things can cause illness. Then you have internal causes of disease. Now, within that, the main one is the emotions. Some people put these other things that are within your control in the internal causes as well. So things like diet, excessive sexual activity, or you know, those kinds of bedroom activities they might be sometimes referred to in these older textbooks. Overexertion, that could be in the internal causes because you have control over those. In the miscellaneous causes, again, these are things that are outside of your control, but they could be mitigated against by keeping the internal and the external causes at bay, let's say, in your world. So weak constitution or poor constitution, or just your constitutional factor, right? Just as in, no, I don't want to use that term necessarily. So your constitution is one of those things, like what you're born with, the essence that you're born with, your your genetics. So that's something that you can't really control. You're just born like that. You know, once you're born, you have no control over how you came to be. You're just how you are, right? And then you have trauma. So things that happen to you by accident, right? Like you've got run over by a bus, or you fell over and you hurt your ankle, you had a sports injury, something like that. You might have been attacked or something has happened. So those traumatic things, you usually can't avoid them, right? And then you have parasites and poisons. So these are things where it would be hard to avoid this as well. Like you wouldn't knowingly eat things that you know have parasites in them. Most people wouldn't, but it's come into you. You wouldn't knowingly ingest poison, let's say. It's happened to occur. So whether that was from some, person trying to harm you, or you've accidentally ingested it without realizing it, or something like that. And then the wrong treatment is also included in this. So idiopathic, like caused by a doctor, that's what that means. So caused by, taking the wrong herbs, and what we can also include in this is kind of over-treatment by wrong methods, maybe by practitioners or maybe by self-treatments. One of the things I notice a lot from doing my YouTube channel is by reading the comments and getting involved with, live streams and things like that. I know lots of people are super interested in helping themselves, which is a great thing. Like, don't ever stop doing that. But it's easy to get caught up, even for people that are knowledgeable in certain things, it's easy to get caught up on, I'm just going to take more of these different things, maybe not being aware of the dose of something, or like what's an optimal dose, as in not so much, oh, I've got a lot of money so I'll just afford to buy a lot of this stuff, but you could take too much of something that is then overloading your system and overworking your system. You could be taking things that are antagonistic, which means they're basically cancelling out how they're working in your body. So what's that doing? It's just creating a lot of work for your body to do, digesting these things that aren't actually giving you any benefit. And you could be taking things that are actually doing detrimental things to your body. So there's certain herbs, for instance, that you can't have alcohol with. Otherwise, those herbs might start to work badly in your body. It might start to give you adverse side effects. But they also, for some people, they just don't work. The herbs aren't working. So you're wasting the effects of the herbs. You might not get an adverse effect in your body, but you're not getting the benefit effects of the herb either. So they're things to kind of consider, right? So you have these 3 causes of disease. You have this external cause, which are the 6 pathogenic factors. You have the internal cause, which is your diet, lifestyle factors, overwork and sexual stuff, like too much sex. So in Chinese medicine, they have kind of ideas about what things you should do at certain stages of life, like how many times you should have sex for a man and for a woman. And also like how that depletes you is going to be different. So ejaculating all the time is going to deplete men. Having babies all the time, or regular babies, or having miscarriages and things like that, depletes women, because you typically don't get as depleted by having orgasms. Now you can do, like women who get hypersexual, and this again could be part of that emotional stuff of having this super duper joy, which is like this seeking of pleasure. Not that joy is a bad thing, but just thinking in terms of those excessive emotions. And I've had some women who've had a insatiable sex drive as one of their symptoms, right? And they're just like, I can't stop thinking about sex, and like masturbating or things like that. So that can affect you physically if you're acting upon that, but it also affects you mentally, because it's like draining your mind. Like you're thinking about that stuff all the time. So that affects men and women kind of equally in that way of that overactive sexualness. Yeah. So everything's in a balance. That's the good thing about Chinese medicine. They don't say you should abstain from anything in particular in a general sense, like even diet stuff. Like it's good to have a variety of foods. Obviously, we've talked a lot at length on this channel of what's healthy, or what's considered healthy in Chinese medicine. So I'm not going to go into all that in such a great detail in this video. But yeah, that's the nutshell of what are the causes of disease. Because someone asked me on the channel about, I think it was on the end of a parasite video, like we were talking about wormwood and parasite cleansers and things like that, and they asked, where do parasites fit in? Are they part of diet? So not typically, because it comes back to that consideration of are they things that you could avoid? Now, yes, you can lessen the effect of getting parasites if you cook meat, and if you have healthy drinking water and food and things like that, and you don't bathe in parasite infested waters or things like that, for sure. But in a general sense, it's not the same mechanism of how it affects you as foods. Now, you can get sick in multiple ways. So a person who, let's say they are depleted in a general sense, right? So let's say over time they haven't had a healthy diet, they haven't had good sleep, they might have overworked their body in terms of that mental taxation. So just mentally doing a lot of stuff, like working hard, sitting a lot, not enough exercise, that kind of stuff. And they're going to be in a lesser healthy position to face the illnesses that come from the environment. So we all face illnesses that come from the environment. We all face wind, cold, dampness, heat. Now, to lesser extents, I live in a very hot part of Australia, so it typically gets really hot where I live. Now, when I go to Melbourne for a holiday or something, or I've gone there for a business trip, and I was like, whoa, this is freezing. Like literally freezing my nose off, and I couldn't hardly, my eyes were watering just from going outside in the cold wind, because I'm not used to it. Now, if I kept on living there, I possibly would build up more of a resilience to that wind and the cold, like the cold, icy cold winds, possibly, or I might not. But the people that come from that environment might not be able to withstand the heat that kind of is part of where I live. if that makes sense. So by living in the place where you dwell, where you live, you will generally build up a bit of a resilience to that, and you'll generally be healthier to tolerate that. Some people not, but in general, we're just talking very generalizations kind of thing here. And so you also kind of know what to expect when you're in those environments, right? So let's say I had a situation once where I got off an airplane, and it was like you were going from one opposite climate to another climate. And that's a very dangerous thing to do in Chinese medicine in terms of your ability to get sick, like your likelihood of getting sick, because you don't have this transitional time. So I made a video before about seasons with Tyler Rowe, and we were talking about, he's more of an expert in that area, and we're talking about like seasonal changes and how, like, you know, the environment, how we adapt to the environment through those transitional seasons. So like autumn, fall and spring are 2 transitional seasons. So you don't just go from like the height of winter to the height of summer, right? there's a yin and a yang kind of transition towards those things. Same as like the coldness of night and the heat of the day are 2 polar opposites, right? So you don't just go, oh, it's freezing cold till, wow, it's boiling hot. You actually have you have a transitional time, and that's what you're doing. So as that's happening, your body's adjusting. Its homeostasis is kind of adjusting. And essentially how you get sick in Chinese medicine from these external pathogens is an inability of your body to provide that homeostatic balance, essentially. So it's basically combating the environment all the time. Now, if you go into an environment where lots of people are coughing and spluttering and they're all sick, you are going to be exposed to germs, let's say, possibly viruses, bacteria, whatever's there, yeah? And we're exposed to viruses all the time. Like, you know, there's different bacteria, different germs, different pathogens, let's say. So that's all a grouping of how we can talk about those things. Every time. So you touch a surface, you know, you meet other people, like, you know, different families or groups of people or households of people have different, you know, germs, and even, you know, it's been a while since I've been on a plane, but when you hop on a plane, you know, it's essentially a tube full of germs because it's all different people with different homeostases, right? Different environments, like all around them. And so our body builds a resilience to illness by being exposed to these different things and going, oh, that's something to like raise our immune function too, and then come back from that, and then doing that. Now, if you go into an environment where there's a lot of illness, and this would be the pestilence disease aspect of the causes of disease. It's almost like in Chinese medicine, they're acknowledging that, hey, it's impossible or almost impossible for you not to get sick. Like, everyone's going to get sick. You probably can't prevent getting sick. It's just how sick are you going to get? And I think we can kind of identify to that now that I'm making this video in 2021. Whereas if I'd have made this video in 2018, I don't think people would have probably understood what we're talking about here. But you kind of get the gist, right? So in a very broad sense, there's 3 categories of illness. One of those categories you can mostly prevent the illness from, and that's the external causes. The second category you can also, like, you know, I'd say 90% of it you can kind of you can control it, whether you personally are empowered. So this is your lifestyle factors. And it's also got to do with whether you want to or whether you end up having the means to control that. So a lot of people can't afford healthy diet if they live in a situation where they've lost their job and they can't afford good food or good shelter or something like that, and then they're getting sick from, you know, being in a dirty place, or their food isn't properly cleaned or something like that. You know, I'm talking about people that are in an extreme state of poverty. But also, like, you know, if you get so busy trying to pay your bills, earn money to pay your bills, and then you can't cook properly for yourself and things like that. So technically these categories of illness are things you can control, but I understand that it's harder for certain groups of people to control those things than others. But they are things you can intervene in. Whereas the environment's kind of like out of your control. It's like, this is going to happen, right? The environment's going to happen. Like, you can't control the environment. And then the last category, that miscellaneous category, well, those are things that are also just going to happen. Like, yeah, they're just going to occur. Now, in my copy of the Giovanni book, in the internal causes, he only puts the emotions, and he puts the diet and the lifestyle factors of, like, over exertion and excessive sexual activity into the miscellaneous. Yeah, but as I said, I've seen them in other texts represented in different ways. So I hope this video has been useful and helpful to you, not too long-winded and crazy long. I am doing a course in 2021. I'd love you to join me for the course if you are interested in this kind of video and you'd like to learn a structured, more detailed, in-depth way of understanding the fundamentals of Chinese medicine, and then going a step further and being able to apply that knowledge to self-help healing things like foods as medicine. So there's a whole 12 weeks just on the foods as medicine, and then another 12 weeks on the self-help aspects that Chinese medicine has to offer you. So things like learning how to use moxibustion for home use, learning how to do acupressure points on yourself in a very detailed, structured way. This course is a self-help empowerment course. It's the first time it's been offered ever, I think, because I've made the course up myself. I've had many years experience teaching Chinese medicine at university level, and this next year, 2022, I decided that I would offer this course for people that are interested in learning it in a self-help way. So it'll prepare you if you're interested in studying at uni and you're not sure if Chinese medicine's right for you. This is not an accredited course by a university, but the knowledge that you'll learn is exactly the same. You know, Chinese medicine never changes. That's what I'm getting at. It's exactly the same as what you'd learn at a university of how does Chinese medicine think about, you know, the yin and yang and the 5 elements and these fundamental aspects. And if I've had any experience I've had a lot of experience with talking to many students over the years, some that have been my students, but also many that have contacted me through the YouTube channel. And they've said, well, they really love listening to my online talks and lectures and things like that I've done. I've done a study buddy series here. So if you're a student and you're still interested in that, then you can click on that link. I'll pop that below. It's called Study Buddy. And there's, like I go through the Zhang Fu organs and things like that. And I think we went through yin and yang and some of those fundamental stuff that isn't really pitched to your everyday layperson. It's a bit more involved than that, a bit more theoretical and sort of higher level learning than your average YouTube video. But if you're interested in that and you liked that, and you're going to like the course. But what a lot of these students said to me is they said, look, it just helped me hearing you explain it, like hearing me explain it, and also having their teacher explain it, because it's two different people explaining the same thing. Then suddenly the penny drops and they kind of understand the knowledge. It's super duper helpful to have another person explain it to you. So if you're studying in a formal course and you want to enroll in my 1-year learning experience, you're welcome to do that as well. So thank you so much for your time and your attention. I'd love to see you on another video soon. Click the link below to make sure you subscribe, and have a great day. Thank you for watching. And shit. Wait. Smash me special cup. Oh, damn it. Smash me podcast cup. Oh, so when I edit that bit out, it'll be the cup in one bit. There won't be the cup in the other. I'm just going to leave it like that. See if anyone notices. I'll put that bit at the end.